You know, in the States, Big Pharma kind of rules everyone's life. If they want to get a certain price for something, they just charge it and they'll get it. And they're, like I mentioned in the last video, product managers and all doing kickbacks and everything. And they can set whatever price they want. And this is stupid. This is absolutely insane that people are dying. And it's sort of like, why are we allowing this to happen? People have to travel to Mexico, or they have to travel up here to Canada to get medication. And I can remember where my diabetes insulin was $70 a bottle, and I couldn't believe it. Now it's like astronomical. And if I had to go out searching and traveling to go get insulin, I might as well end my life. Because that's what you're saying. You're saying pay our prices or you die. And I'm usually trying to be a little bit more upbeat in these videos. But how can we let this happen? I don't care if you're American. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. If you allow a person to die because they can't afford insulin, then in my mind, you're complacent of murder. Now, I watched a video, and this person on this video said, insulin to us is like oxygen. I'm sure medical companies would just love to charge for oxygen or air, common air. But you know, it's amazing. If they charged us for each breath we took, you know, Americans would be up in arms and but for diabetes, it's kind of like, oh, okay, charge whatever you want. I say insulin, syringes. If you can't control diabetes with those, then an insulin pump should be covered. And in British Columbia, we are lucky things are covered. And sometimes you need to speak up and say, is there, you know, I'm on disability. Is there any way we can cover things? But I think diabetes throughout the world is getting more prevalent. And for whatever reason, my body and a hell of a lot of other diabetics have to constantly take a blood sugar, glucometers, test strips. And it's kind of like, well, in most people's minds, it's, well, you know, if you just lived a better lifestyle, you know, you wouldn't have diabetes. And yes, I'm in a weird predicament in that I needed to live. It's covered by my provincial health plan. Great. Syringes are covered. the basic necessities to keep you well under control. But in the States, suppliers, there are so many stories of people dying when they didn't have to die. Diabetics, just like anyone else, has the right to live. And I can remember my sister in her rebel days dated a guy, and I can remember having this conversation with him. And he was from the States. And he said, well, you're just talking socialism. And yeah. And he also said I was taking drugs because I shot up with insulin. Oh, you're taking drugs. We've got to break the stigmatism. Type 1 diabetics, and I'm sure there are many people out there fighting for type 2, and insulin is needed, but diabetics go into ketoacidosis and they die. But all the drug manufacturers down in the States want to think about is, oh, how much money can we get out of them? Let's just keep raising the price. And insurance companies are just as bad. They will say, oh, you're only allowed so much of this per month or year or whatever. It's not the type 1 diabetic's fault. And insulin, syringes, test strips, glucometers, all are needed to live a healthy life. And if you go into the hospital, well, why are you in this condition? Well, I haven't been able to afford my medication. You know, it's kind of like, well, you didn't take good care of yourself, so we're just going to bill you for that. And it's like, if people are doing things that are negative to your health, then fine, pay. But don't go around and tell us that it's our fault for having this condition. It's not our fault that our bodies decided to stop making insulin. And there's talks, and I just did a video recently, about no carb, eating no carb, so there's no chance to raise your insulin. But you know what? You can only do that for so long. And it's like, well, no, sorry. And in the States, Congress is sort of starting to look at it. It was a promise. I don't know where that's at. But there are other people across this world where insulin needs to be covered. Now, I know it's kind of difficult for a diabetic in Canada to fight the U.S. system. But people are making billions off the backs of diabetics just because they can. And insulin should be a covered drug, hands down. And, you know, people need to be aware of this. Don't stop fighting for this. I know if Canada decide, oh well, we're no longer going to cover insulin, the CDA would be the first out the gate, and probably every single type 1 diabetic would be up in arms. And insurance companies, oh well, your plan doesn't cover insulin, or this is the price, your copay is still astronomical. Think about it. We breathe, water's free out of the tap. Just because we have a problem that our bodies don't work the way everyone else's does, we have to keep just handing over the cash. What happens if people can't afford it? Talk to you later. Bye.